Good evening. My name is Zara Roach, and I would like to call to order my last meeting of the Pasco Planning Commission. So I'll hand it over to the clerk to call roll.
Present. Joseph Campos.
Present.
Paul Mendez.
Present.
Ann Jordan.
Present.
Abel Campos. Isaac Myron.
Present.
Zara Roach.
Present.
Pam Rainseer.
Present.
Jerry Cochran. Madam Chair, there are 6 members, and so we do have a quorum.
Thank you. And just to let the commission know, Abel might be on his way, and we're doing things in a slightly different order today. So bear with me. Okay, let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. The Planning Commission is an advisory board made up of volunteers appointed by City Council. The purpose of the Planning Commission is to provide recommendations to the City Council on changes to the comprehensive plan, land use updates, block grant allocations, and zoning code. The Planning Commission is tasked with considering the long-term growth and development of the community, considering the impact of land use decisions on community, livability, economic opportunity, housing affordability, public services, and environment. To perform our duties, the Planning Commission holds formal public review via public hearings and workshops. City Council then takes the testimony, facts, and findings and our recommendations into consideration when making final decision on those matters. I would like to remind the audience that tonight's proceedings are being broadcast on City of Pasco's Facebook page and PSC Channel 191 on Charter Cable, and will be rebroadcast several times during the next month. This meeting is also being recorded so you can watch it on the City of Pasco's website, which is pasco-wa.gov. Click on the video on demand link and make your selection there. There are copies of the meeting agenda available on the back table, so you may follow along with the meeting. At this time, I would like to ask you that you silence your cell phones to prevent interruptions during the meeting. For those present this evening, when you're given the opportunity to address the commission, please come to the podium, speak clearly into the microphone, state your name and your address for our records. Before we begin tonight's meetings, I need to remind the audience and the Planning Commission that Washington state law requires that public meetings and hearings like the one being held this evening be fair, but also appear to be fair. In addition, Washington state law prohibits Planning Commission members from participating in a hearing or a decision in which the member may have a direct interest or may be either benefited or harmed by the Planning Commission's decision. An objection to any Planning Commission member hearing any matter on tonight's agenda needs to be aired at this time or it will be waived. So first, are there any Planning Commissioners that have any declarations regarding the items on the agenda tonight? Looks like no. Heads shaking no. Okay. Let the record show there is no declarations. And second, is there anyone in the audience this evening who would object to any Planning Commission member hearing any of the items on the agenda? Looks like no declaration. So, moving on. We as the Planning Commission need and value your input. It helps us to understand the issues more clearly and to make better recommendations to City Council. Furthermore, in many cases, your input here at the Planning Commission meeting is your only opportunity to get your facts and opinions placed into the official record for the City Council to use and make its decision. I encourage you to take full advantage of this opportunity. The next item of approval on the meeting minutes is from the October minutes, October 17th, 2019, and I would entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the October 17th meeting minutes.
Second.
So it was moved by Commissioner Campos, seconded by Commissioner Bowers. All those in favor? Aye. If there's any opposed, say nay. Looks like the motion passed unanimously. And we are now on to, that was our one item from that portion, to public hearings. So, the first item is A, code amendment, a planned unit development revision, CA 2019-010. And I'm going to let staff introduce this item.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commission. You're stuck with me tonight as a pinch hitter. Jacob is unavailable, so luckily you've seen this several times now. I did want to call out, though, that in the report you'll see a table on page 3 that represents suggested language in terms of guest parking. We talked a bit about that at the October meeting, and you'll see that the staff recommendation is at least one space for 6 dwelling units at a minimum and one space for 10 dwelling units at a maximum be implemented through the proposed plan development or plan unit development regulation. And then you'll also see a reference right above the table on page 3 to private streets and connectivity. And if you'll focus your attention on the ordinance underneath the section 25.140080, it's 3 pages into the ordinance. You'll see the private street standards at the very bottom of the page. And those have been developed through a fairly lengthy dialogue with our engineering staff and is proposed for the Planning Commission's consideration. With that, it's essentially unchanged from the October meeting, and staff would recommend that the Commission entertain any public comments on this item and then schedule deliberations for the following meeting in December.
Thank you. So before commissioners have questions or discussion, let's open it up to the public for comment. Any individuals who wish to speak on this particular item, now is the time to come forward to the podium. Please state your name and address for the record. Do we have any takers? Doesn't look like it. Okay, so commissioners, do we have any discussion we want to have about this item, about private streets or any of the proposed code, parking suggestions? Questions for staff?
Just a comment. I kind of like that we're keeping within the teens as opposed to like Vancouver and Spokane, which have none. I think it kind of keeps that, I don't know, rustic kind of feel to it. Hopefully in the future we still have open land that we can use as opposed to, you know, really urban development, you know, urban cities that seem like they don't have much. So.
I'll throw a question out there. For the open spaces, would it include, because there's just 4 suggestions there of examples, but could it include pools, like hatches for, you know, picnic tables, etc.? Do we need to include something like that into the language of the PMC, or do we leave it as is?
Well, it's intended to include those. So if it would be helpful to put that language in, we'll certainly do that. And as a matter of fact, it's in, I believe it's in our existing ordinance at present.
Okay, thank you. And then my concern about the pedestrian pathways. So a sidewalk, then putting a sidewalk into a private street, for example, then that would be considered part of the open space of a planned unit development?
Well, not really. If a private street needs sidewalks, I wouldn't consider that a pedestrian pathway. It's intended for a dual use, at least pedestrian and or bicycles. And generally you don't follow the alignment of the street. You'll connect it to, for example, open space or to different buildings within a complex, but you generally would not assume that to be a sidewalk that you would get in any other style of development.
Okay, so it is specific in its language, meaning that it's a pathway and not a sidewalk then. So I was
Yes.
conflating the two. Are there any other comments? I wanted to say I appreciated the part, and I don't know exactly where it's at, about the private streets, that they cannot have a private street unless they own both sides of that land.
Yes.
So that's helpful. So shall I entertain a motion to close the public hearing?
I move to close the public hearing on the proposed code amendment regarding planned unit developments and set December 19th, 2019 as the date for deliberations and the recommendation for city council.
I'll second that.
Commissioner Pam, it's by Conan. It's Rancier. Okay, thank you. I apologize for that. Moved by Commissioner Bauer, seconded by Commissioner Rancier. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Let the record show that it passed unanimously, and it's going to City Council next.
To the commission next month.
Okay. And so this brings us to item B of public hearings, land use amendment, CPA 2019-001, and I will let staff introduce this item to us.
Again, thank you, Madam Chair and Commission. This item is a comprehensive plan amendment. As you know, we're in the midst of our comprehensive plan process. It's not an amendment process this year. It's a cyclical amendment that happens every 8 years, although we're a year late. So now it's happening every 9 years, and next time it'll be every 7. It'll be happening in 2025. But a request has been received to change this roughly 4-acre parcel located at the northwest corner of Broadmoor and Burns from the existing high-density residential designation to mixed residential commercial. As indicated in the staff report, the mixed residential and commercial designation would permit at least C1 zoning, which is the intent of the applicant. And I believe they have in mind either a convenience gas store or just a gasoline store. I'm not certain, but they're here and they can speak to that. The staff report also outlines the place that this property has within the Broadmoor Master Plan. Currently, in the preferred alternative of the Broadmoor Master Plan, it's designated as high density. And as the commission is certainly well aware, the city is in critical need of density to accommodate approximately 48,000 person growth over the next 19 years. The Broadmoor Master Plan also has now currently about 140 acre zone commercial, roughly 660 feet, a quarter of a section just south of this intersection. So although no motion is required of the commission at this time, we, as staff at least, will be recommending that this area remain high-density residential unless we get specific direction from the commission to the contrary. When you see this land use map, the final draft land use map of the comprehensive plan in January, staff's recommendation is that it show this area as high density as opposed to mixed residential commercial.
Okay, thank you. So if there's no pressing questions for staff at this moment, I'll open it up to a public hearing. Okay, Commissioner Bowers, go for it.
I'm a little.
Mike, please.
Thank you so much, Chair Roach. I'm a little confused, staff, because I'm looking at an overhead here, and the site that is the rectangular site on my handout is different than the rectangular site in that picture. Is anyone else noticing that? Oh, am I doing it the wrong way?
No, you're right. It's oriented incorrectly on the aerial. It should be north-south as in your handout.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. Was this previously owned by someone else? Well, we've rezoned this land a couple times. It was residential, then it went to high density, and now
Yeah.
it's
You have.
before us again.
You've looked, well, it's owned by the same person as it has been for a number of years, yet, but yes, you have. I think in and then staff report calls that out. In I think it was 2016, it was designated, I believe, low density, and it was redesignated as high density at the request of the owner, and then rezoned R4, which implements the high density comprehensive plan designation.
Thank you. Any other questions for staff? If not, then let's open it up to the public hearing, and would the applicant please come forward to the podium, state your name and address for the record.
Actually, I'm Tom Kidwell. This is my son Todd. And Todd is, what's your address?
811 Pasco Clovis Highway.
Good evening, Mr. Kidwell and Mr. Kidwell. Tom and Todd.
What I'm looking at on this, we got our map a little bit wrong.
Yes.
You have the whole 14 acres set up. I've only bought 4 acres on the corner,
Okay.
and I'm wanting to do a gas station.
Okay.
So I don't want that whole piece. We just want to do the little corner that we could turn into something and develop it.
Looks like our layout then is probably accurate to what he's asking then.
So our orientation of that red rectangle is north and south along 100 instead of along Burns Road. Is that what?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So what is the plan besides gas station? Are you thinking for a mixed, was it commercial?
Maybe a car wash behind it on doing the whole site is doing first 2 acres of a gas station, and then there'll be another 1.95 behind it.
Okay.
That I could probably maybe do a car wash on, was
Okay.
the big plan.
So no housing on this 4-acre parcel at all?
Not what we want to do, no.
Okay, no gas station on the bottom and housing on the top?
No.
Okay, got it. Any other questions right now? Or is there anything that you want to tell us more about this parcel or?
It's just, we own Shell stations. We want it to be a Shell gas station. It would be branded with Shell.
Okay.
So it would just, that's the idea, is to be big and to where it's not going to be a little small area. We want to do a bigger footprint. So it'd be easier for cars with trucks and RVs and boats to get around, is
Okay,
the idea.
thank you. And Commissioner Bowers has a question for you.
Thank you. Will there be a convenience store as a part of it?
Yes. Yes.
Any other commissioners have any questions for the applicant? Now would be a good time.
I'm just curious. Well, first of all, thank you for coming tonight. So it was my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. White, but I was thinking that this was rezoned as high-density residential because there had been a plan submitted to the city to do high-density residential, and then it was discovered later that it wasn't zoned correctly. Is this the same property, or is that different property?
No, I think it is the same property. There was never a formal application for a development permit
Okay.
submitted. There, it was talked about a lot, and the sewer availability discussion occurred at a very high level, but there was never a formal submittal aside from the rezone request that was approved to high density.
All right, thank you. So can you walk us through why there's a change from the original plan of, I think it was apartments or,
I was never involved in any of the original stuff.
okay,
I ended up finding this spot, looked like it'd be a great location for our gas station. And then we worked it, trying to buy the 4 acres. They wanted to buy the whole thing. I could only afford the 4 acres, so
Gotcha.
that's what we went for.
okay.
I want it to be on a corner.
All right, thank you.
Are there any other questions at this time? Do you own the property within the the turquoise colored square around it?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
Okay. Sure.
Along with it being a gas station, will it have any more modern, like car plug-ins or charging stations?
We're working on that. Shell Corporation owns another company. We're trying to get approval for it, but we haven't got them all the way yet. They've approved one in Badger for the other Shell, but we put our name in, but we haven't got approved yet.
Just for knowledge, are there any others in Pasco that have? the
Only thing I
charging
know
stations?
that has is Starbucks, but I don't know any other gas stations.
Thank you. Okay, well, stick around. We might call you back up again. And we're gonna see if anybody else wants to speak to this item
Thank you.
in the audience. So now's your chance, if you're in the audience and you wanna come forward and speak to this application, you can do so. Doesn't look like anybody's taking on that. I do have a question for staff about the recommendation, and that is on the opposite side of, on the eastern side of Burns at 68, haven't we planned and zoned for that node around 68 and Burns to have commercial around the perimeter of those streets at that intersection, and then residential set back? I believe on Burns, we have some commercial and then high-density apartments right behind it. Is that correct?
On Burns and 68,
Yes,
I can't remember. I think.
by that substation.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. Now, that's information I can bring back to the commission, but I don't think we have that designated in that manner. I think it's designated as residential transition,
Okay.
which is a holding zone until there's adequate transportation and utility facilities.
So what I was thinking about was what we talked about as the planning commission was that those high traffic areas like 68 and Burns, 68 and Sandifer, Burden, obviously Road 100 and Sandifer, being at an intersection like this, we in the past as the planning commission have talked about doing commercial close to those intersections and then transitioning to a higher density housing and then to lower density and kind of grading it from high to low from those intersections. So I don't know, in my perspective, it still fits with what we have agreed upon in the past, what we were trying to do as a city. And anybody can feel free to comment on that as they want.
Yeah, Mr. White, you mentioned the Broadmoor Master Plan is going to be addressing some of the commercial needs for this area. Is that right?
Yeah, oh, definitely. It includes this property, by the way, the Broadmoor Master Planning effort, as well as the Harris property that was just auctioned to the south of Harris Road. But yes, it does, and it indicates the preferred alternative, actually in all alternatives, that this maintain in the master plan, the designation is mixed use, high density residential.
Okay. So it is mixed use.
Not meaning mixed use, commercial, residential, mixed use in terms of density, 8 to 15 units an acre.
Okay. So this will be a major intersection, I would say, over the next several years. I mean, as the area develops. But it looks like on the main arterials, at least, a lot of high density and low density residential along these intersections. Is that right? And then the Broadmoor Master Plan will shift commercial away from the main arterials. Then is that a layman's explanation of it?
Yeah, it is. Currently, of course, there's a big commercial chunk, literally 140 acres, that's adjacent to the west side of Broadmoor Boulevard, and then the master plan vision thinks of that as regional commercial because of its proximity to the freeway and the available space it has to allow traffic circulation to get in there and get off of Broadmoor Boulevard. Mm-hmm. Then as the rest of the Broadmoor area develops from east to west, it's envisioned that there'll be neighborhood commercial that will take the place of the typical development pattern where you drive to neighborhood commercial areas, whether it's a grocery store or a coffee shop, to do whatever it is you need to do. And you have those neighborhood commercial areas in a location that facilitates pedestrian or bicycle or just easier access. So yes, there's a regional component and then a commercial component in the master plan.
So you wouldn't think that an intersection like this would probably have the capacity to handle a high traffic commercial development, similar to what we might have on intersections of Road 68. I'm just thinking this is a major arterial. This is an important intersection in coming years, and I'm just really trying to understand having residential all the way up to this intersection. It seems to be a fit for some commercial development, but I just want to get. Sounds like the city has a master plan for the area, but I also recognize this is a very important intersection as well. And so it's an interesting concept, but I know the city's working hard trying to plan long term. So thank you.
Go ahead, Commissioner Campos.
I'm kind of on the fence. Just looking at this map, it looks like the utilities could be used there, but we're laying so much groundwork. We've already done a lot. I think we wouldn't be doing due diligence if we decided something like this while powers that be are actually going through and doing all the stuff that they're doing on the backside of things, whether it may be premature or not. So again, our decision here is for land usage, and we have somebody that's already doing that for us. And I just don't really. I'm gonna probably go with what the city's recommendation is on this.
Thank you for your opinion, Commissioner Bowers.
So just east of this site, there's single family housing?
Yes. You mean across Broadmoor
Yeah.
to the north of Burns Road, yes. And then
Okay.
a school site, and then another school
Right.
site, and then additional single-family housing.
Right. I'm just wondering whether the owners of the homes to the east would be bothered by this, but I see no one's here. Protest. Just noting that.
One thing too that I wanted to ask about was, is there not a parcel near to this that the Pasco School District owns and has plans for a high school in this area, west of this or adjacent to this?
If the commission can see the cursor on the screen, I can't. Can you guys?
Yes.
Okay, well, it's this 80-acre parcel right here with the small irrigation pond in the corner. So that's been purchased by the school district. Now, what I understand though, and this is, I don't have anything to show you in writing, I have understood that the school district may be interested in not focusing on this as the next high school site. They may be searching for something closer to Road 68.
Okay, but they still
But
own this.
that's just
and there's
speculation
gonna
at
build
this
something
point,
probably. I personally tend to agree with Commissioner Myram on this. This intersection is one that I live by. It's exceedingly busy. I know it doesn't show it on this map here, but it shows it in our packet that directly east, there's a housing development going in, and it's almost entirely full. I believe there's more housing going in to the east of the new middle school and the elementary school, with commercial abutting right on Burns and 68. And I think there's, plenty of housing to support a business like this. And I don't know that living one street, kitty corner to this parcel, this is not a kid-friendly sort of walk your dog and ride your bicycle sort of street. There's that much traffic on there. So it's going to be a busy intersection. And so having housing along it might not make the most sense. Maybe high-density housing, but definitely not low.
So as a busy intersection, you're willing to put something on that intersection that then impedes the flow of traffic. Think about the gas station right off of Burden on 68. people are always taking that left. If you didn't have those utilities there, it'd be a straight shot. People wouldn't be stopping there.
Right,
So-
there's also Chapel Hill and 100, there's a
Right.
gas station right there across from the housing, and that's opposite, south of the highway, and so you usually find gas stations are north or south or east or west of the on-ramp or off-ramp of a highway to
Right.
be accessible to people who are coming and going. And so I don't think that this is a very unusual site, I think it's actually a very appropriate site.
Like I said, I do think, looking at the map, looking at the utilities, I don't disagree. I just think that we're doing a lot of the legwork, and I would not, I want to make sure we do it right. Is
Sure,
really my
I agree.
concern. And
Yeah.
I think that Anita and Associates they know what they're doing, and it may wind up being a gas station. I
Yeah.
don't know that. But that's just my 2 cents.
If we're in the almost done but not quite done with presenting the plan that's coming, and we have someone ready and able to put a business in, is it possible to look at moving one commercial to this, like to see what the alternative would be if there was one here and if there wasn't one here? Is that too labor intensive at this point of where it's at?
Yeah, it is. I wouldn't even go there. Again, there's no decision of the commission that's really needed tonight. You're going to get 2 shots at this, once with the Broadmoor Master Plan and again with the Comprehensive Land Use Plan. And at that time, you'll have in hand 2 fully developed, thought out plans. And it's probably best to make your decision when you have those and are able to confer with the data and the analysis that's in that.
So the comprehensive plan will be coming before Planning Commission in February,
Approximately
and then when will the Broadmoor Master Plan be coming?
end of January.
Okay, so relatively soon, then.
Yeah.
We can expect it. Commissioner Bowers, did you have something to add?
No.
Okay.
Got a quick thing.
Commissioner
So
Myron.
just a question about process again. You mentioned this is a cyclical process where people can petition to amend the comprehensive plan. I thought I'd read somewhere in the code it could be an annual process, or you can at least amend it once a year. Is that regarding petitions, or does this operate on a regular schedule where we could entertain amendments kind of as we go?
Yes, and well, no, not exactly. The state law only allows amendments to the comprehensive plan once per year, and we're doing that already.
So we're taking the petitions that were made this year, or this
Yes.
cycle, I guess,
Yes,
and we're considering them together. And then once that door closes, it's closed for a while.
it's closed. It's closed, and this is weird. And it's only weird because we're late. But then the process starts again in summer of 2020, which is just a few months away. So someone will be able to apply in summer of 2020 for a decision that will occur early in 2021.
Okay.
What we're trying to do is align the county cycle. For some reason, we're off by 8 months, and I don't know how that happened. I wasn't here, but we're trying to align the city's cycle with the county cycle so that we get applications by the end of summer, we consider them through fall, we make a decision the first part of the year, and then off they go to the county. This is kind of funny, but essentially, Commissioner Meyer, you're right. You once the door's closed, it's closed, and for this year, it's closed.
Thanks for that question. That was a good one. So we're going to close the public hearing on this without any recommendation, essentially. Or you want a recommendation from
Well,
us.
Staff has provided a recommendation.
Right.
If I were the commission, you may want to consider waiting until you have the Broadmoor Master Plan and a chance to weigh in on that, and or the final land use draft of the comprehensive plan.
So essentially, like one of the commissioners to leave this open. No. Okay.
And again, things are kind of funny. You're used to doing site-specific quasi-judicial requests,
Right.
and this is one, and I've asked our city attorney about this, but it is a legislative decision. So I would be cautious and consider it a quasi-judicial decision in terms of who you talk to outside of a hearing or a meeting, but you do get several additional opportunities to address this again during this Broadmoor Master Plan and Comprehensive Plan process.
Okay, so we are not taking any action now, but we will close this public hearing. Is everybody good? Any other questions or comments before I close it? All right, so it's going once, going twice. Public hearing is now closed. And we're going on to the next item. Land use amendment, Rio del Sol CPA 2018-003. And staff, would you reintroduce this item to us that we have seen a few times before in the last couple of years?
You have
Yeah.
most recently, I think it was summer of 2018, actually summer of 2018, and you held a public hearing and actually received quite a bit of comments regarding the proposed changes. But enough time has passed where we brought it or are bringing it back to the commission for another chance at public comment. The proposal was to change the 5.5 acres that you see on the site sketch located on the screen from low density to mixed residential commercial, which would allow, at least as described to the commission last summer, a mixed use development that had high density residential living and some perhaps assisted living facilities and perhaps some commercial kind of folded into sort of a master plan. Again, the staff recommendation is that given several factors, particularly related to access to the site, which doesn't appear to be existing through any public way and is not controlled by the applicants, that the staff recommendation is that the commission maintain the low density designation of this site. Again, this will be brought to the commission when the comprehensive plan is brought to the commission with the existing low density designation, unless the commission feels strongly enough to indicate something to the contrary.
So with that, do any commissioners have any questions on this for staff at this moment or need any refresher about this item? Go ahead,
Yeah,
Commissioner Campos.
the applicant's not pursuing anything at this time, correct?
We have not heard from the applicant, and I'm not sure why.
I think I have an idea why. I think Mr. Miles passed away several months back. And
Yeah, I had heard that. I can't verify it, but I had heard that.
So if the applicant's not pursuing anything, I recommend we just leave it as is until we hear otherwise.
I would
Just
agree
my
with
2
that.
cents.
If that's, did you read that in the paper or?
Tri-City Herald obituaries, I'm pretty sure. Pretty
Okay.
sure. I can't confirm if that's not the case. I feel really bad, but I believe that is the case.
Well, I agree, commission, if that's the case, commission doesn't need to take any sort of action on it, but we should still open it for a public hearing because that's what you'd like us to do. So, let's do that. If there are any if there are any people in this audience who'd like to come forward and speak to this particular item, please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and make your case. Doesn't look like anybody's going for it. Okay, so we're gonna, do you have a motion to close?
Can I ask one question?
Yes, go for it.
So, if I recall, the last time we saw this, it turned out that the applicant didn't own all the properties in here. Is that still the case?
I don't know about that. The applicant didn't own any of the properties that would offer an extension of Road
Access.
34 to the site or any of these properties to the east of Road 36. So it was very unclear where access would occur from.
That's
Thank you.
so unusual that it just doesn't have access to the property at all.
There may be an easement on the east side, but I'm not sure what that parcel is, and I think that was addressed last year, but I can't remember what the conclusion was.
Even the perimeter is unusual in how it it juts into the neighboring parcel on the east. Any other questions? Doesn't look like it, so
Motion to close the public hearing.
thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Campos, seconded by Commissioner Rancier. All those in favor? Aye. If there's any opposed, say nay. Okay, it passed unanimously, and then that brings us to our last item, which is other business comprehensive plan update on the capital improvement plan. And I'm gonna hand that over to staff because that's who should handle that.
Well, it's just continuing the effort to get this material in front of you, given that you probably have quite a collection now of elements of the comprehensive plan so that you can start reading. This latest batch includes a capital facilities element, which basically recites the city's adopted 6-year capital improvement plan. It includes a transportation element, which has been completely rewritten from the previous plan, and then an implementation and monitoring element, which also has been completely rewritten. The transportation element is the most complicated of, actually it's the most complicated of all of the elements because there's a considerable interface with the state of Washington and the Benton Franklin Council of Governments and Franklin County. So we are required to coordinate with state and regional agencies. We implement land use designations and expected traffic impacts, and we try to stay above or equal to what's termed as a level of service D. So there's, just like in grade school, or there's grades of service, A, B, C, D, E, and F. D is right above gridlock, and then E and F, of course, are failures. But the region as a whole has developed a level of service D, as has the state on their facilities. So the transportation element has been drafted to reflect what's necessary to maintain that level of service. What's missing from this is the traffic impact analysis that was accomplished during the Broadmoor environmental impact statement process. So that's still being fine-tuned by our transportation consultants, although it will be part of the transportation plan. And as we bring forth the documents that I keep talking about, the Broadmoor master plan and the land use element of the comprehensive plan, the traffic impact analysis indicated that in both cases, both the Broadmoor master plan and the comprehensive plan, the mix of land uses in the preferred land use scenarios gave the city a reduction in vehicle miles traveled and number of trips generated and length of trip generated in the preferred alternative in both those cases. And that's very important, and it's important for the commission to know because the state, particularly on 182, is very concerned about the amount of growth and the amount of trips and the effect that would have on the transportation system on the 182 freeway in order to meet that level of service D. So it's kind of funny, even though the state's own forecasts predict that in 20 years there's going to be a problem, we're still going to be required to fix it in 20 years based on our land use conclusions that are part of our comprehensive plan. So in other words, it's a very complicated, kind of a juggling event. We rely on our 6-year plans so that we can show that incrementally we're addressing issues. And as we get to the end of this 20-year, in theory, 20-year planning effort, we'll have some kind of fix available through the provision of either transportation improvements or reduction in trips generated. Sorry, but that's the kind of stuff that we're dealing with all the time. And we've had a number of discussions with the state of Washington, including the Council of Governments. And I think we're on solid footing regarding moving forward with our comprehensive plan and not getting an appeal from that agency.
I would say that it's already problematic on 182 at 168 if you are in that corridor coming from Richland, Kennewick area at between 4:30 to 5:30 p.m. I was just heading west, and it's bumper to bumper traffic, stopped, and there's no accident. That's just Pasco being a bedroom community, and everybody's heading home, and you know it's you're just stopped on the highway, you're stopped on the bridge till you can get to your exit. And so I would say that before we get to 2038 and the additional 50,000 people, we probably need to do what we can to elevate that priority at Road 100, at Road 68, and throughout Pasco.
In the plan so far, both 68 and Road 100 meet the designation for E, and it basically means exactly what you just said. It reiterates.
What page are you on?
It doesn't have a page number,
Dang it.
but it's on the transportation. I can go ahead and just read it. Basically, it says operations at this level are usually unstable because small increases in flow or minor disturbances within the traffic stream will cause breakdowns, meaning your rush hour traffic. But it starts off with it represents operating conditions at or near the maximum capacity level, which I think is accurate. Freedom to maneuver within the traffic stream is extremely difficult. Accurate. Generally accomplished by forcing vehicle pedestrians. The difference is why it's not an F is these clear up after rush hour traffic.
Right.
So they're usually pretty open 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, noon. It's just when you start getting about 3:30, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock is when they start backing up for miles. So,
But it is also problematic when somebody has a flat tire or there's an accident
absolutely.
or somebody gets pulled over. And
Right.
so those are the non, like high traffic peak times that still cause exactly that type of congestion.
I just want to say I'm actually glad to kind of have a part in this. I know when I first started with the commission, we'd have a lot of transportation questions that come up, and Dave's first response was always, "There's been a traffic study done 10 years ago." Traffic study. We already did the traffic study. And so it's nice to be on the ground floor and make sure that we're doing it right.
Actually, thank you very much, because that is something I forgot to mention, and I was supposed to. We are right now doing a transportation master plan, first one ever for Pasco. So that will take a comprehensive 20-year look at transportation.
When
And-
does that
and-
come to the planning commission?
It won't come to the planning commission.
Okay.
It's a planning level capital investment plan. So it's a budgeting tool, essentially. But the point I wanted to make is state facilities require state either investment or reinvestment. A municipality cannot do it alone. It's just that kind of a thing. And there are state plans for both Highway 12 clear on the east side of town, and for Road 100 and for Road 68. They just haven't been funded.
So how do we alert the state or flag the state as we need this? It's a priority for us now, not later.
Well, we're already doing that, but it takes either more clout in who's doing the asking or more money so that there's more to go around.
Who typically makes the ask?
Legislators, cities, special interest groups, sometimes
so
the governor.
Our legislator in this area would be
They'd be the people to talk to.
Congressman Newhouse.
No, the state legislators.
So who are they?
Joe
Jenkins,
Schmidt,
Schmidt,
Schessler, I can't
Schessler.
remember.
and
Mary Dye.
Maureen Walsh. No, is that another candidate? No, Maureen is
No,
Pasco.
she spills over, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So now you all know who to contact.
Tell them I sent you.
Okay. Yes, Commissioner Bowers.
So since I've joined, I've heard rumors about an overpass or around Road 84 or 72, pardon me. And then I recently heard people saying there should be a bridge into
At the Northwest
Richland.
Passage.
Yeah, and so I just want to ask, where does that fall? Where should that fall?
Well, the bridge is just too, the bridge is very far, well, there are 6 alternatives being looked at for a bridge, and the planning horizon is probably a 40 to 50 year horizon for that to occur. The Road 76 overpass over the freeway, that was something that actually came out of the DNR land sale process and is indicated on our transportation improvement plan, which isn't very binding because it goes so far out in the future. But that is an idea that may in fact come to fruition, not right away, but perhaps in 10 to 20 year time frame it may. So, and that connects over the freeway to existing Road 76, which is essentially behind Walmart, between the row houses there.
Would there be more, would it be more likely for us as a region if Pasco and Richland were to partner in hounding the state and getting a Northwest Passage over the Columbia River? Because there's been a lot of talk on Richland's side about the bypass highway being problematic for traffic. A lot of that traffic comes here to Pasco because people reside here. Instead of diverting it at that route, could municipalities join together and?
Certainly. Although I think the proposed location is so far from Pasco that I don't know how it would
It's too
help.
far north? Okay.
Yeah, unless the city expanded much more rapidly than we anticipate and much more quickly.
Even with the annexation that we're doing of the additional 6 square miles, it's still.
Oh, no, yeah, it
further
doesn't even
out.
come close. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's at Sagemore Road, and so we're talking, I think that's 6 miles, 5 or 6 miles outside of city limits.
I don't know. I don't think it's that far, but
It might be.
that's the way that we're growing, and so I mean it makes sense for the growth of our city is what I see.
Well, we've got a 40 to 50 year horizon because, well, and frankly, it doesn't really matter if it was needed today. The money isn't going to be there because a bridge is $1 billion project.
In the B's, billion?
The
Yeah, got it. Okay. Okay, so do we have anything else to discuss about this capital improvement plan or questions that we have? Doesn't look like it.
Just a quick thank you to staff for all their hard work on this. There's a lot of changes and a lot of updates, and we all appreciate that.
Commissioner Rowers, yes.
As I was reading this, I didn't see any mention of the Lewis Street overpass.
Funny you should say that. That's because it was a done deal when this was written. Since the November 5th or 6th election, or whenever it was, about 45% of the funding for Lewis Street evaporated with the passage of the $30 car tab initiative. I can't remember the number, 976, I think. So money that has not been obligated for state projects that were funded through the extra money you pay on your car tabs, they all came to a screeching halt. So I don't know what's going to happen. Actually, I don't think anybody knows what's going to happen, but in 2020, when the legislature convenes, they'll have to either ignore this issue or address it or take a vote to overturn the initiative. or develop alternative funding sources or something, but all state projects relying on that funding source are simply on hold.
So if another truck driver hits it and damages it beyond repair, you still can't get your money?
Like that, I couldn't answer.
Okay.
Do you have an idea to do?
I wouldn't
thought-
acknowledge that here.
Some
I thought it was-
vigilante idea.
I thought it was federal money too. No?
No, there is some federal money in there, but it's not enough, to overcome. I think there's $14 million in state money and the project's only $30 million. Only $30 million.
Thank you, Commissioner Bowers, for that question. That's a great way to see how our dollars fix some of our traffic issues, or don't fix them if we don't get them. So
I had heard some communities rely on that quite heavily. Pasco doesn't or didn't directly utilize the card tab revenues, is that right? But it does impact some of the state funds. Is that correct?
It does, and if we would have had a car tab initiative, we couldn't implement it. Yeah, as per the language of the initiative. We don't, but if we did, it would affect that.
So a lot of small towns just saw their budgets like evaporate basically overnight. Yeah.
But wasn't the bridge, the Duportail Bridge, also receiving some of that money? Is it that they just started early?
Well, but I think their money is being spent, so I'm going to get the terms wrong. Even though ours was set aside for us, it was never obligated. So I think Richland's was.
It all depends on the language of the contract and their fee schedule, and if they meet milestones, percent complete, whatever they may do.
So I think we have one other business that I won't be here in December. So, I won't be here anymore at all. But I wanted to just bring up that you guys may need a new chair for the Planning Commission. And so Commissioner Myram is vice chair. But anybody else is free to, put their name in for that. But you guys can figure that out next month. Thank you. It's been an honor to serve with you.
Thanks for your service.
And with that, we're adjourned at 7:58. Nope. Looks
Just a
like
couple quick
Mr. White
things.
has more.
In 2020, we'll have quasi-judicial training, even though you probably are not going to be considering many quasi-judicial items. It's still training that is, believe it or not, required. And you'll have training on the Open Public Meeting Act, which is also required. And that will likely be put on by either an attorney from Washington City's Insurance Authority or our own city attorney. And then in this coming winter, we're going to refly all of the Tri-Cities for new aerial photographs. So there'll be a drastic difference. The aerials right now seem really outdated, and they are, but they were only done a couple of years ago. But anyway, we'll have new aerials at the end of beginning of spring of 2020.
Thank you. Any other? Nope. Okay. Adjourned at 7:59.